The pinnacle of this arc, everyone. Welcome to the August Tale. I'm August, and here on the channel I review anime visual novels, but for this series we're going to cover the second season of Higurashi Sotsu. These series of videos will be an episodic review and will serve as a visual novel / original story comparison, as well as a theory crafting series to solve this new mystery of Higurashi. Spoilers for episode 9 of Higurashi Sotsu, and with that said, let's begin. By the end of this episode, you should have a clear idea of how the rest of this arc is going to play out. Ooishi, after having been injected with the H173 drug, is attempting to lure out the likely murderers from the yearly Watsunagashi festival using Teppei as the bait. I didn't expect to ever say poor Teppei, but well, here we are now. Our new reformed Teppei is earnestly trying his best to resolve the situation for Satoko, and while he may not be the most tact individual out there, he's putting in the effort. I'm not saying it's on the same level as Keiichi's uprising, but Teppei is doing what he can in his own way. There are similarities. The parallels from both Keiichi and Teppei almost burning their house down, with Satoko coming in to save them, is an uncanny resemblance. Both Satoko's friends and Teppei are attempting to save Satoko, but both are doing so off of entirely different contexts, which directly oppose one another. This is where things get a bit cloudy and difficult. It's basically a he said, she said situation. Both are in direct opposition to one another, and it's difficult for the justice system to take effective action. In this case, the Child Welfare Office. Keiichi and the club members are actually strong-arming their way through this ordeal. With the power of the Hinamizawa village behind them and the authority of the Sonozaki family, they are able to have a very significant advantage from an emotional front. In addition, Teppei's reputation as the irrational, erratic, foul-mouthed individual people claim him to be is working against him. Teppei is not in a good spot. This overwhelmingly negative stance against Teppei is an example of why the village of Hinamizawa can be a terrifying and frightening place to be in. The village is a closely knit community and can very easily act as a united front. Even with a small population, they can still prove to be an undeniable force, especially since word gets around tremendously fast. We were already shown this during the Hinamizawa Dam protest, and they managed to win. It's also relevant during the most mundane of issues as well. If you remember, there's that incident with the delinquents in Mion's arc, where everyone rapidly assembled in defense of a fellow villager from an outsider. If you've been branded as an enemy of the village, that collective perception is intimidating and alarming. It's what causes the mental paranoia and anxiety in an individual, very similar to how Keiichi felt in the first arc of the original Higurashi story. Given that it's Teppei doesn't give a crap what people say about him, but going after Satoko is a different story. The only thing working for Teppei now is his testimony and actions. Satoko is the only person who can support his claims, but that's coming from the victim at the center of this debate, and the fact that she's also the mastermind behind why this problem started in the first place. Teppei was able to acquire the assistance of Ooishi after begging him to come help, and given their passing history, Ooishi accepts and vouches for their situation. But as we come to find out, Ooishi isn't exactly the most straight-laced cop. His backstory was covered in this episode as a reminder of his motivation, his suspicion towards the Sonozaki family, and his obsession over the murders of the annual Watsunagashi festival. While Ooishi may be on the side of the law, I wouldn't outright deny his rather aggressive and accusatory actions, and this is still the same behavior in the original story too. You could argue that his drive to find the murderers was purely objective and a part of his job, but I can't help but feel that his methods of doing so were underhanded and emotionally driven. In fact, I would even say that Ooishi normally was just a couple steps away from being a vigilante. With Ooishi under the influence of the Hinamizawa syndrome, it shouldn't be a surprise that he would take more drastic measures. Although peeing on the shrine wasn't exactly expected. He's given the opportunity, so might as well use it to his advantage, in more ways than one. It's just a matter of connecting the rest of the events and filling in the gaps, now that we know to look out for Satoko and Ooishi. After all, we already know what happens at the end of this arc anyway. So what do you all think of this episode, and what are your thoughts? I would love to hear them. If you like what I do here, consider subscribing and check out some of my other videos here in the channel. New content every week. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all later.